Throughout 2006, I was developing my urban landscape series, which started out as my undergraduate thesis at OCAD. The focus of this series was capturing the experience of a fast-paced information overload that is modern life, and expressing that rush of energy through what I call the digital aesthetic. At the time, my imagery was based on collages of found images from different cities, merged with screenshots from video games. Once I graduated, and all that writing crap was out of the way, I was able to sit down and just paint. I could forget all the nonsense and distill my ideas. Somewhere along the way, my own reaction to or experience of a location became important. Using random pictures from Google wasn't going to cut it anymore. I needed to take those photos myself, and Toronto wasn't going to cut it either. I needed a more exciting environment. Since Asian cities look like a cross between Coruscant and Blade Runner, I figured I'd go there. Build up an archive of source material to draw upon later. There was a lot to see. In South Korea, even a small town of 20,000 looks like Toronto's Yonge and Dundas Square. I wasn't able to go a full year without painting something, so I picked up some watercolors while I was over there and got started. The first one was my first attempt to adapt this style to a different medium. It felt like I was fighting the paint while I was working on it. For the second piece, I was a bit looser. Rather than imposing my ideas on the paper, I let the medium have its way, letting some of the unique characteristics of watercolors work to my advantage. The third piece is probably one of my personal favorites. And the fourth is a further refinement, using more ink than paint. For this one, I wanted to have either stark contrast between the blacks and whites, or extreme subtlety, no in between. I like my pieces to have an immediate impact, but I also want there to be a little bit more to keep you coming back to it. After returning to Canada, I dropped my watercolors and returned to acrylic, my medium of choice. I got to work producing as much as I could while the experience of Korea was still fresh in my mind. Then I took a break for a while, and went on to some other things. Then I went back to work, but by now, Korea was more of a distant memory. Like my work in 2006, I was approaching these paintings in a more detached way. I was also working smaller, and I had switched from Photoshop to GIMP, which has some filters that work quite differently from what I'm used to. I like the idea of using free tools that anyone can get a hold of, rather than the expensive professional stuff, which can be a bit of a barrier for entry for people. Since these paintings are heavily based on source images, the program used to manipulate them makes a big difference on the final piece, which is why I mention it. After working on this series for 2 years and producing over 30 paintings, I think I've got enough of Korea out of my system that I can move on. Up next, I tackle my current city of residence.